We start by seeing a man named John running hastily through an Irish forest. However, being lost, he returns to the same point a few times. He then sees a sign on a base made of branches, an animal skull, and a plaque that reads, "Point of no return, 108. John becomes terrified as he realizes he is running in circles in a vast forest. Knowing that the sun has already set, John starts to climb one of the large trees to try to protect himself from something, but he ends up falling and getting injured. Panicked by the situation and hearing something approaching from behind the trees, he grabs a knife from his backpack. The noise becomes louder, sounding like some kind of growling beast. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long for the creature to reach where John is, leaving him in disbelief at its existence. Whatever it is, it drags John into a hole, where only his screams can be heard. The scene shifts to a young American woman named Mina, who works with animal rescues in the city of Galway. Her boss calls her over to show her a beautiful bird and says she will be responsible for taking it to a zoo that is a day's journey from their city. Mina agrees and returns home with the bird. She spends some time sitting in front of the bird, talking to it alone. She tells the bird that her mother passed away 15 years ago, which is why she looks so worn out. Mina says she is going out, and as she gets up, the bird repeats her words, showing that it is an intelligent bird. The young woman changes clothes and puts on a wig. She goes to a bar and introduces herself to a man as Caroline. After a brief conversation, they have a pleasant night together. The next day, Mina takes the bird and starts her journey in her car. Along the way, she talks to the bird to pass the time, and moments later, we see her at a gas station refueling. As she gets back into the car, Mina receives a voice message from her sister Lucy, questioning why she didn't attend their late mother's memorial. Lucy explains how it went and ends by saying she is worried about Mina and asks her to call back. Still not over her mother's death, Mina doesn't call and continues her journey. At the gas station, there is a board showing several missing person posters, all of whom went in the same direction Mina is heading, which happens to be the same area where John was taken by the creature. Later on the road, the young woman continues listening to her sister's message, and for a moment, she speeds up the car but regains her composure and continues driving carefully. Sometime later, guided by the GPS, she reaches a dense forest that the road cuts through. However, shortly after entering it, her device shows a malfunction, and the radio changes music and turns off. Suddenly, the car stops, leaving Mina baffled. She gets out of the car to see where she is and nearby sees a sign that says, "Point of no return, 12. Mina decides to take a walk to see if she can find any residents nearby, bringing the bird with her. On the way, Mina calls out for help but, fearing getting lost, doesn't stray more than 50 meters from the vehicle. However, when she turns around, she doesn't see her car. This situation scares her even more, and she runs to where her vehicle was, but it has disappeared. Already thinking she will die lost in the forest, she calls the bird Darwin to become closer companions. Suddenly, a noise starts, and then a large group of birds flies overhead. Things get even scarier when the ground shakes, and after this episode, something moves between the trees near Mina. She runs towards it, and upon arriving at the spot, sees an old woman standing and watching her, but the woman continues running. Mina decides to follow her and says she needs help, fearfully mentioning that there's something strange in the forest. The old woman disappears from view but suddenly reappears, opening a door to a square shelter. She calls Mina inside if she wants to survive, so Mina quickly enters. The old woman's name is Madeline, and there are two other young people with her, Kiara and Daniel. Mina asks where they are, and Madeline says they call it the Perch, and like Mina, they also got lost there. The old woman explains that beings known as the Observers are in the forest and want to watch them. She reassures Mina that nothing will happen to her. The group stands in front of a mirror that, at night, only allows them to see themselves but not the outside. Kiara says that the beings come every night to watch them from outside until the sun rises. Daniel says the beings have arrived, and Madeline asks Mina to step forward. Suddenly, a noise begins, and the young woman realizes it's applause, and Madeline explains that the beings are applauding her and welcoming her. The night passes, and at dawn, Mina decides to leave to find her way home, but her new friends say she won't succeed. However, the old woman tells them to let her go. Mina follows a random direction in the forest, hoping to find the car. However, not far from the Perch, she hears a female voice calling her, and looking to the side, she sees a woman. Frightened, Mina runs, taking the bird with her. She reaches an area where she can see the vastness of the forest surrounding her, realizing that escaping is almost impossible. With no choice, Mina returns to the forest, where Madeline approaches her and confirms that they all have tried to leave that place but failed. The old woman calls Mina to show her something, explaining that the forest can cause hallucinations and drive people mad, but they can learn to master themselves to avoid being controlled by the evil surrounding them. Madeline shows the same sign Mina saw earlier, now identifying it as point of no return 44. Madeline says these signs are scattered throughout the forest, forming an almost perfect circle, and each sign is half a day's walk from the perch. She warns Mina that if she crosses the marked points, she might get lost and never return. Mina asks who made the markings, and the old woman says the young people call him the professor. They return to the perch, and later that night, Daniel, who has some mental disturbances, pretends to be a presenter for the observers. Mina asks what she should do, and Madeline tells her to act normally. Kiara performs a dance for the beings, and Mina admires her as well. The next day, Mina follows Kiara. Moments later, Kiara talks about what she enjoys doing and mentions that her husband John has been missing for 6 days and hasn't returned. For a moment, she thought John had sent Mina to the place, but Mina doesn't know him. Kiara continues, showing Mina some medicinal plants. Mina asks what the beings want from them. Kiara says she doesn't know, but Madeline says that just seeing one of them can drive a person insane. Kiara then takes Mina to see a burrow leading to a network of underground tunnels, explaining that this is where the observers shelter during the day, making her feel safe knowing the beings don't come out in daylight. Mina asks how long Kiara has been there, and after thinking a bit, Kiara says it's been 5 months. They all return to the perch, where Madeline and the others tell Mina she must never turn her back to the mirror, open the door after dark, or approach the burrows. Madeline says the observers leave them alive because they follow the rules, so Mina must comply to stay safe. Night falls, and as usual, Mina watches videos on TV. Outside, a creature moves among the trees. Mina takes a moment to go to the mirror. She touches her reflection and puts her ears to listen outside. She hears a strange sigh and returns to bed scared. Suddenly, the beings knock on the mirror, startling Mina, who stands up. Madeline tells her to remain still so the observers can admire her while they continuously knock on the glass and make bizarre growling noises. The next day, Mina goes with Daniel, now responsible for hunting since John's departure. Mina continues to see a woman, but realizing it's hallucinations, she focuses on Daniel and asks how long he's been there, to which he responds 8 months and some days. Mina asks if he has seen an observer, and Daniel says no, because seeing one would drive them mad. Mina asks if Madeline told him that, and affirming that she did, Mina says she doesn't believe it, and Daniel shows doubt as well. They go to one of the burrows, and despite Daniel's pleas, Mina enters with his help. Descending into the burrow, Mina stays under the sunlight, and Daniel tells her not to step out of the light. Using a lighter, Mina explores the burrow, finding a newspaper dated April 1992, an old camera, a teddy bear, and other items. She decides to take her findings. As Daniel is lifting the items, a growl echoes behind Mina, and when she turns to check, she sees something approaching from the darkness. Terrified, Mina tells Daniel to throw the rope, and as a bizarre hand tries to penetrate the sunlight, burning to reach her, Daniel throws the rope, repelling the dark creature. Mina takes the items to the perch and says they found them on their route. Before joining Daniel, Madeline, suspecting something, asks Mina what she saw, but Mina claims she saw nothing. Inside the perch, Daniel confirms that electronic devices don't work outside the shelter, but they can be powered inside the perch. He claims that the professor probably created some power source that might be below them. Daniel shows that he knows how to handle electronics and connects the camera to the television to function as external monitoring. Later that night, the group waits to see the observers, but they are taking a long time to arrive. Suddenly, human legs appear on the camera, indicating someone at the entrance, but Madeline says it's impossible for anyone to live outside the perch after sunset. Madeline explains that it's a trick to make them open the door, and she confronts Mina, saying she knows she lied about where she found the objects. Suddenly, what seems to be a man outside starts complaining of pain and asking for help. Thinking it's John, Kiara gets up to check if it's really him. John's voice is heard, and Kiara tries to open the door, but Madeline stops her, reminding her of the rules. The supposed John says he is injured and needs help, but Madeline turns to Mina and asks again where she went that morning. Intimidated, Mina admits she went down into the burrow and reiterates her desire not to stay there. Turning her attention to whoever is outside, Kiera asks the supposed John something. She asks him about a book, but the stranger says he doesn't know. This leaves Kiera suspicious and in doubt, because John gave it to her. However, she insists and asks him to look at the camera on the door, to prove that it is him, and surprisingly it turns out to be John, who is soon dragged away. This leaves Kiera desperate, wanting to open the door to help her husband, but sinister growls are heard, and the camera is destroyed. The group positions themselves in front of the mirror, but the beings seem furious and start banging on the mirrored wall, causing cracks in the glass. The next morning, the group goes to the burrow where they took the objects, and Madeline throws the bicycle back. She tells the others not to break the rules but encourages them by saying they will find a way out. Moments later, inside the burrow, an unknown creature takes the bicycle and drags it away. Days pass, and Mina reflects on her life, remembering the day she lost her mother. They were on a car trip when Mina, being a disobedient child, distracted her mother from the road, causing a crash with another vehicle, resulting in only Mina and her sister surviving. Mina draws the marked points in her journal and is now responsible for gathering medicinal plants. Nearby, she observes Madeline and Daniel arguing because Daniel is slow in setting traps for food. Mina returns to the perch, where she has drawn part of the explored territory on the ground. Kiera is sitting in a chair, but as soon as Mina gets distracted, Kiera leaves the perch. Worried, Mina follows the direction her friend went. She finds Kiera about to throw herself into one of the burrows, hoping to be dragged to where her husband is. Suddenly, a scream catches their attention, and they see Madeline tied by her feet, with Daniel responsible. He is hallucinating and runs off. Kiera follows him while Mina unties Madeline to return to the perch. Unfortunately, when they return, they find the place locked, and worse, it's already getting dark, and Daniel won't let them in. Knowing Daniel won't open the door, Madeline takes Mina to a shelter made of branches and something decaying, which helps disguise their scent. Madeline explains that the rule is for everyone to be inside the perch, visible in the light. Daniel and Kiera wait for the observers, and meanwhile, a humanoid creature appears on top of the shelter where the two women are, growling as it approaches them with a terrifying face. The creature moves towards the perch, standing fully upright, revealing a humanoid body but with a monstrous, dark appearance. It lets out a terrifying scream, followed by more creatures approaching the perch to observe. Realizing the two women are missing, the creatures quickly start searching for Madeline and Mina. This gives the women precious time to convince Daniel to open the door. Daniel finally opens it, and Madeline, though very upset, knows there's no time for arguments, so they position themselves in front of the mirror. Madeline then shares her real story, revealing she was a professor of folklore and mythology and knew the dangers of this forest, yet chose to enter it. She explains that it was only when she saw an observer for the first time that she realized the peril surrounding her. Madeline says she hunted on her own, and one day as the sun was setting and she was returning to the perch, she saw a being that looked strikingly like her, only taller and with a macabre face. Madeline explains that the observers are ancient beings known by many names in various legends and traditions, such as changelings, fairies, winged beings, and magical creatures. They have the power to study their victims and transform into them, even mimicking their voices. The observers roam outside, and to prove Madeline's point, one of them speaks with Kiera's voice, another with Daniel's, another with Madeline's, and one with Mina's. The group, fearing that the observers will break in, drag a table to the door, revealing a hidden passage beneath a rug. Daniel hammers at the welded section until it breaks, revealing a bunker. Without wasting time, they open it and seek refuge inside. Mina enters first, carrying her bird, followed by the others just before the observers break the glass and door of the perch. The bunker is spacious, with electricity, supplies, and evidence that its previous inhabitant had been studying the creatures as well. Mina finds a computer and begins searching for information. She discovers a folder with many videos, one featuring Dr. Rory Kilmartin, who makes his first recording on September 24, 2009. The professor states that the bunker is his fortress, and every night the creatures come to observe him through the glass. Days later, in another recording, the doctor notes that the observers are improving daily, transforming to resemble him but with incorrect proportions, learning quickly. One video reveals that during the construction of the bunker, the doctor hired 13 men a day, men without money or family, knowing their fate the following night. Near sunset, he would invite them to dinner outside while he retreated to the bunker, only to hear their screams later. Another video shows the professor stating he saw an observer in the form of a girl, emphasizing the creature's shape-shifting ability to closely mimic its duplicate. In a subsequent video, the doctor is seen with one of the creatures, this time inside a cage in the bunker. He approaches, claiming he won't harm it, but the creature rises and shows its fury. Mina plays the last video, number 300, where Kilmartin states that when he is above, he feels revulsion at what he sees and, despite having a plan to leave, he won't return to the human world and will destroy his specimen and himself. He mentions a boat located on the river beyond point 134 and advises anyone watching the video to follow the birds as they know the way out of the forest. In his final words, he asks whoever escapes the forest to go to his office at the university and destroy everything. The video continues recording and shows him ascending to the perch, followed by the sound of 2 gunshots. After learning everything about the doctor, the group spends the night in higher spirits to forget the danger. The next morning, they prepare to leave, with Madeline advising them to stay alert, as the forest's magic will try to confuse and lose them. At point 134, the group stops, and Mina releases the bird, hoping it will find the way out. After crossing point 134, the group passes a place known in legends as the rock that seals the passage of imprisoned fairies. Madeline explains that magical beings once lived as gods among humans, bridging nature and humanity. However, there was a time when their power frightened humans, leading to a war between the two races. The changelings were imprisoned in a deep tomb sealed with a large stone to prevent their return. Madeline says that for centuries these beings have crawled to the surface only to discover they have lost their magic, wings, and cannot leave the forest. The group continues their journey, fearing failure. It starts to rain, and suddenly a flock of birds flies past them, signaling that night is approaching and the forest will become even more dangerous as the changelings begin to emerge from their burrows. Fortunately, the group reaches the river the doctor mentioned and finds the boat nearby. They are thrilled but hear the creature's growls. Hastily, they run to the boat, but foolish Daniel hears the supposed John calling him. When the women are untying the boat from its chains, they see Daniel carrying John, but Kiara tries to warn him that it is not her husband. Unfortunately, they don't have time to help the young man, who soon realizes he has been deceived. The being in John's form wounds Daniel's leg to immobilize him, then overpowers and kills him. Many other changelings appear on the riverbank, and as the 3 women depart on the boat, they watch the changeling transform into Daniel's appearance. The next morning, Mina wakes up to the sound of birds singing and sees that they are near a bridge. The 3 women get off the boat and wait, and fortunately, a vehicle soon passes by. The bus driver stops, and when Mina asks where he is heading, the man says he is going to the city of Galway, so the women get on. Moments later, we see the bus arriving safely in Galway, and then Mina returns to her home. The next day, Mina goes to Dr. Kilmartin's office, managing to enter by claiming to be his niece. Mina finds a trunk containing a voice recorder, where the doctor talks about a discovered scroll detailing the ancient history of times when fairies lived among humans before they became wild. The scroll illustrates how fairies lived among humans, even being part of families and partners. However, the mixing of the 2 species created even more peculiar beings who, with their power, could even duplicate deceased people. Then came the war, with humans cursing the changelings and imprisoning them. The doctor expresses his opinion and desire for the possible truth of this legend, as if it were true, humanity could use such magic for many things, including bringing anyone back from the dead. Mina finds more items that surprise her, so she takes a taxi to Kiara's house. After entering, Mina shows some photos of Kilmartin with his wife, who is Madeline. However, Madeline never told them she was the doctor's wife and pretended not to know him when she saw him in the videos. Mina also reveals that she discovered the real wife of the doctor had been dead long before his research, deducing that the Madeline who was with them all this time is actually a transformed fairy. But they imagine she is different because she can walk in sunlight. Reflecting, Mina laments helping one of the observers escape from the forest and says they need to send her back. A few minutes later, the 2 wait for the imposter to arrive. However, when Mina goes to wash her hands, she notices cockroaches in the sink and realizes the environment is infused with magic. Suddenly, a vehicle approaches the house, and when the woman steps out, Mina sees that it is Kiara in her car, understanding that the one present with her is an observer who had taken Kiara's form. Mina confronts the observer, who says it will become her. As soon as Kiara enters, the observer disappears and reappears behind her in John's form. He knocks her out, then quickly grabs Mina and throws her against the mirrors around them. Mina questions the observer in Madeline's form about protecting them all those days, but now in Daniel's form, it responds that it kept them as pets, learning about them and observing to become like them. After thanking Mina for helping it escape, it drags her to the door to observe her this time. Madeline reveals that after centuries of imprisonment, she is finally free. She says her true observer name is Ainriacton, known among them as the Stranger. She begins to transform, explaining that when the professor arrived in the forest and found her, he promised to tell her the way out. However, he tried to shoot her, so she had to kill him. Mina runs to check on Kiera but sees through the glass window that the observer now has her appearance. The being quickly enters and presses Mina against the glass, wounding her wrist and saying it will walk among humanity using her body. Mina tries to talk to the observer, questioning why it can leave the forest and walk in the light while others cannot. This intrigues the being, who releases Mina to hear what she has to say. Mina then reveals that she found documents at the university that the doctor had kept, showing that in the past, the two species lived together and even built families, having children called halflings. Mina tells Madeline that she is not just an observer but a hybrid because she has human DNA in her body. Mina then tries to bring out Madeline's human side, demonstrating love and forgiveness. As Madeline struggles internally, Mina reinforces that she knows she is not a monster and believes she can control her body. Mina says there must be many others like her and that Madeline can find them so they no longer have to live alone or dominated by the hatred that prevails among the observers. The being emits an aura of energy and begins to regain her wings. She goes outside and tells Mina she hopes she is right, then flies off to find more of her kind. After the encounter, Mina goes to Kiera and helps her up. Days later, Mina tells her entire story to her twin sister Lucy, who has a scar on her face. The film ends with a little girl observing Mina's house from the street, soon revealing herself to be Madeline in the form of a little girl.